Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me. Today, I want to speak about something that's often overlooked in Western discussions of the Middle East. Not a fact or statistic, but a mentality. You can analyze the history, quote the documents, and present the data. But if you don't understand the internal language of the Middle East, you're missing the heart of the story. I recently watched an intelligent video analyzing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It was articulate, well-researched, and even balanced. But like many such analyses, it had a blind spot. It failed to grasp how people in this region actually think, speak, and understand power. Because judging the Middle East from a Western lens is like watching lions on the savannah and expecting them to behave like deer in a zoo. In the West, people grow up with liberal values, individual rights, freedom of speech, democratic institutions. These are the lenses through which they interpret conflict. But the Middle East doesn't operate according to those rules. It has its own internal code, one shaped by honor, loyalty, tribal identity, and survival. And without understanding this, even the most well-meaning observers can completely misread what's happening. Let's explore 4 key features of this internal language. 1. Honor and shame. In the West, honor is often an outdated concept. But here it drives decisions, even at the cost of logic. Wars are launched not just for land, but to restore pride. 2. Loyalty over truth. Western cultures value truth, even at the expense of relationships. In the Middle East, loyalty to your group is more sacred. Betraying your people, even for a just cause, is worse than lying. 3. Power over principle. Western diplomacy prefers human rights and transparency. But here, quiet alliances, force, and deterrence are what get results. The image of strength is more important than any press conference. 4. Rigid social structures. In many Arab societies, class and hierarchy are fixed. Control is essential. Leaders rule through fear not because they enjoy it, but because in this environment they must. Here are 3 recent examples of how Western intentions are misunderstood, and how that misunderstanding shapes the region. Obama's red line in Syria, 2013. After Assad used chemical weapons, breaking Obama's clear warning, the US chose not to retaliate. In the West, this was framed as caution. In the region, it was read as a collapse of credibility, a sign that the West lacks the will to stand by its words. The result? A weakened US position across the region. The Khashoggi Affair, 2018. For the West, the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi was horrifying, a clear violation of international norms. But in the Middle East, it was understood as a calculated act of control, reinforcing fear and deterring dissent. The moral debate in the West was irrelevant here. What mattered was the demonstration of power. The Gaza War, 2023 to 2024. After Hamas's brutal October 7th massacre, Israel responded militarily. Initial Western support gave way to public criticism, calls for restraint, and pressure to limit arms shipments. To Western ears, this sounded like a balanced moral stance. But in the Middle East, it was heard as a betrayal of a close ally and a message that even terror doesn't guarantee long-term support. That emboldens enemies and shakes deterrence. In all these cases, the West thought it was speaking the language of justice, but the region heard hesitation, inconsistency, and fear. And here, that matters more than what's actually said. When Jewish refugees arrived in Palestine in the early 20th century, they didn't come as colonizers. They came fleeing pogroms, persecution, and broken promises from Europe. What they found was a harsh, fragmented, Hobbesian environment. To survive, they adapted quickly, forming militias, building defenses, developing deterrence. Not because they wanted to dominate, but because the region demanded it. You're either strong or you're destroyed. There's no neutral ground here. This logic shaped the creation of the IDF, Israeli intelligence, and even modern Israeli diplomacy. It wasn't aggression. It was a response to a brutal environment. So what can be done? How can the West better engage with the Middle East? 1. Speak the language of power clearly. If you declare a red line, enforce it. If you support an ally, stand by them, especially in crisis. In this region, loyalty under fire means everything. 2. Respect the culture of symbolism. Here, gestures matter. A handshake can be a treaty. A delay can be betrayal. Understand the emotional logic behind political actions. 3. Avoid the public scolding model. Morality matters, but saying the right thing in front of cameras can weaken alliances and empower enemies. In this region, diplomacy behind closed doors is often more effective than public pressure. 4. Approach with humility, not superiority. This region has its own wisdom, its own traumas, and its own way of surviving. If the West wants to help, it must first listen, deeply and without arrogance. The Middle East is not irrational. It simply plays by rules most outsiders haven't taken the time to learn. If we want to reduce suffering, build trust, and find real solutions, we must begin by learning the internal language of this region. Not just its facts, but its codes, its fears, and its logic. And in doing so, we may finally start to understand not just what is happening here, but why. You're welcome to share your thoughts in the comments. This topic invites meaningful discussion. Please keep it respectful and on topic. Until next time.